You know, Fox has been wrong all day and all of their facts. And this particular segment is no different.
Unfolded quickly in Dallas last night. Joining us from that city, Sean Rabb, reporter for KDFW, covered the story most of the night. So, Mr. Rabb, do you believe there's more to this than just one lone gunman angry at police? Is there anything else involved that you've come across?
So what we're sure of, Bill, according to the mayor and the police chief, is that this one man is the only shooter, but certainly perhaps did not act alone, had to have some other help, perhaps not in planning, but in assisting him in getting to downtown Dallas on last evening. And that's what investigators are looking for now, in part of what they took from his home today, including iPads, computers, cell phones. They want to know who he was communicating with in the 72 hours prior to last night.
All right, that's wrong. I don't know where this guy has been or what rock he's been under, but they found Mr. Johnson's car. And if you had paid attention, you would have noticed that one of the officers that he engaged with noticed him getting out of his car, and magazines were falling out of whatever he was carrying them in. So you missed it on that one.
What is the evidence that indicates he may have had a Confederate drive him to the kill zone? Is there any hard evidence to indicate?
No, there's no hard evidence because he drove himself, idiot.
That.
So there's been no report of his vehicle being removed from the downtown area.
Okay, now that's factually true. They hadn't removed his vehicle. They left it there while they went through the damn vehicle on the spot.
Unless he came in on mass transit here in Dallas, someone had to bring him.
Now, would it be possible to hold an assault rifle? I guess it would be if you had it, you know, and covered up and stuff like that on a bus. There's no real train he could take in. It would have had been a bus. I guess it is possible that he could have taken mass transit, correct?
It is possible, but probably not probable. We would say it's possible, but it's likely someone brought him downtown.
How far does he live? I used to work in Dallas way back when. How far does he live from downtown?
He's in Mesquite, so about 15 miles,
right,
and
so
Mesquite doesn't have mass transit.
That's right. Okay, so the odds are that somebody brought him there, or he put his car somewhere that hasn't been found. Is that fair?
That's fair.
Okay. Now, in his apartment in Mesquite, they found a whole bunch of explosive devices and other literature. Tell us what that's about.
Making materials, the types of devices that you would use to detonate those bombs. Sources tell me that they were really sophisticated and elaborate. They were surprised, in fact, at the type of devices that were found in possession of this 25-year-old. Not only that, but ballistic vests, Bill, rifles, ammunition, a journal on combat tactics, all of this stuff, and they were really, one source told me, we were scared at what we found, and had he really deployed these bombs, they don't know how many officers could have been injured or lives lost last night.
But I want to be clear, Sean, they didn't find bombs, they found bomb-making materials, is that correct?
Bomb-making materials, okay. Explosive devices, yes, that had not
would
been
have had to be put
together,
but obviously the guy was seeking to cause mayhem. It was just a matter of when. Now, you've been in Dallas, I guess, 20 years, right? Whenever I get down there, I watch you. You know the police, you know them very well. They weren't expecting, as far as I know, the police department, any trouble with the demonstration. It was a peaceful demonstration, correct?
That's correct. None of the police intel indicated anything like this might happen. So there were 100 officers assigned to work in downtown last night for the crowd of 800 to 1,000 people. There were no snipers on top of buildings as you would normally have in place if you expected something like this to happen. Now, SWAT teams were just blocks away because whenever you're having a protest rally, there's always the potential. But with no good intel that someone was planning some sinister attack, they didn't have their highest levels of response already in place.
What about the statement by the police chief that in the negotiation, the terrorists basically flat out said he was upset by Black Lives Matter. Now, he wasn't, as we pointed out, he was not a member of Black Lives Matter. Do you know what that statement means? He was upset by Black Lives Matter?
What I really think it means is he was upset at the officer-involved shootings of black men by white police officers. He had articulated to neighbors that black men were under attack by police. There was the incident in Baton Rouge. Following that, less than 48 hours later, the incident in Minnesota. I think.
So you think he wasn't referring to the group? He was referring to the overall opinion that Black Lives Matter, and then that's what stoked his hatred.
Yes.
Guy's a vet, Afghanistan. We're trying to run down whether he had any beefs in the service, but it doesn't look like it. It looks like he got out, you know, did his 6 years.
Okay, Bill, so you failed to try to tie him to Black Lives Matter or tie him to the subject of Black Lives Matter. And now you're going to try to go after his military record. Guess what? He had a clean record. They already checked.
And nobody will, you know, is one of those who knew that this guy was so radical.
That's right. He got his DD-214. It's like there's a piece of the puzzle here that no one saw before. Only in the last few weeks, perhaps, that he began to talk to some of his neighbors about this frustration. But a lot of people talk about the frustration without taking out these kinds of acts. No one apparently knew.
All right, Sean, we really appreciate it. Please stay on the collaborator story. That remains a mystery, and I think you may be right on that.
Yeah, I think you're wrong on that. I think that this guy basically was a loner. He may have had PTSD, even though he only served less than a full year in Afghanistan. But for what this guy did, he did not have to bring anybody into the mix. He had his own home with no girlfriend or whatever in it, so he was in it by himself. To acquire the materials that he had, especially given his military training, wouldn't have been that big of a deal. To acquire the ammunition, hell, you can go to Walmart and get ammunition. Nobody's keeping track of that. And obviously, since he had a clean record and he came through the military, he wasn't going to have a problem with a background check in order to acquire the weapons that he acquired. So, Mr. O'Reilly, nice try, but fail. And as I indicated earlier, this is where Bill gets busted as far as the somebody else driving the shooter in. The shooter actually drove his mother's SUV in, which they found and were going through it. So Bill's previous, I guess, local news guy, number one, didn't know what he was talking about, and neither did Bill. But the guy that he has on now is going to give a lukewarm indication that there are conflicting reports regarding the shooter's mom's SUV being found on the scene.
Based upon our reporting earlier in the program, Rick, they're trying to find the shooter's car. Because if he didn't have a car, that indicates he may have had someone drop him off because he lived in Mesquite, 15 miles away. So I guess that's, you know, they're trying to fan out and find out whether this guy, whether he has a car or not.
Well, there are conflicting reports about that. There were some reports that his mother's car, an SUV, was found at the scene. So he may have driven himself here. That's unconfirmed right now. Police aren't giving out a lot of information because this is an ongoing investigation. There were also...
Guess what? That was confirmed earlier this afternoon. So is another guy who's late to the game. They found the mom's SUV and they were processing it on the scene.